Still here at WCS Valencia amidst Group Stage 2. Stefano dispatching of Daishi 2-0 in convincing fashion. Now, we're moving on. We have more games to come here in just a few moments' time as the sun still beats down on us here in Valencia. I'm joined to my left-hand side, right over here, by two other people, as we do have Fear Dragon and we have Nathanias joining along for the ride as well. Fear Dragon, nice to see you here at a premiere event. It's your first one. How was your first ever cast?
It was great, hilarious. Honestly, I can't really complain. I got to cast Stefano for my first event. I mean, most people will just think that it's like 2013 or something if I told them my first cast was with Stefano.
That's true, that's true. Did you expect him to come out all guns blazing as he did?
You know, it's always really cool because whenever you end up seeing Stefano play, you kind of have this thing in the back of your mind saying, oh, you know, he's sort of retired. He's not really as active as he used to be back in his heyday, but every single time he always shows up. So I think at this point, we just expect it.
Yeah, and of course, Nathanias, always nice to see how Stefano comes out there. Going up against Daishi. Daishi has had some results in the past, but not able to trump Stefano.
Yeah, I was able to see some of his games that he was playing in the earlier group stage. You know, he's breaking out some good mech builds, and it was almost as interesting of a matchup as you versus me on the hosting side of things, hilarious. But I think Stefano, he comes into these tournaments, he is actually practicing a good bit. He has been streaming more. You do see him online. And when you talk to him at these events, he's always saying, yeah, I actually am tired of being the guy that just gets knocked out early on. Like, I want to at least get back some of that former luster that he had.
Yeah. I mean, your British accent's actually good enough that you could probably just fill the role and do the British accent as well.
Unfortunately, I wouldn't say that my knowledge of heroes is quite at that level to compete with you completely, Lars.
No, you're not a big fan of Zagara? No?
Not quite.
Not quite, not. Two Zerg for Nate, for sure. So let's take a look at now at what is to come. We're going to have Denver going up against Strange. Strange seems to me as though there used to be a long line of Russian or Eastern European Protosses, and Strange kind of feels to me like one of the very outliers, one of the very last of that kind of lineage. Is that fair to say for you, Dragon?
Yeah, you know, Strange is a really interesting conundrum because for a while I was seeing him really start to come up in the online tournament scene. I would see him playing a lot of these online events, and he was doing really well, taking out some pretty decent players, but I think after a while he just sort of faded off a couple of months ago. You just started seeing him less and less. And I think he's still there occasionally as playing an occasional event, but one of the things that really struck me is that he always lived up to his name. He always did end up playing a little bit strange. He was always okay with playing a little bit out of the meta.
Well, we can talk a bit further on these players in just a few moments' time. Smix is now ready on the stage. Smix, you've got to interview a lot of people, but it must always be fun to interview Stefano, surely.
Definitely, I have to say he is for sure one of my favorite interviewees. He makes my job very, very easy, so you got me there.
Nicely done. All right, Smix.
All right, we'll talk to you in a little bit, but of course, as the guys have been mentioning, our next match will be between a French Zerg and Russian Protoss, and Denver and Strange. Now, interesting for you guys back at home, they were in Group B, and they both defeated Showtime to make it to this winner's match, and now Showtime is out in Group Stage 2. That can't be understated. That is a massive result that I don't think anyone expected. So with this, the player that wins here will be moving on to the round of 32. So for now, it'll be Denver versus Strange.
All right, let's get into it. Just like Strange, as I mentioned before, you know, he comes from a long line of Protosses from that Eastern European region. You've got someone like Denver who the French region is very, very powerful indeed, but Denver lies just a little bit below some of the other guys. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, well, we talk about what kind of spurred a big push in, you know, the Zergs in Europe in general, and the swarm of them that have cropped up in the last few years comes back to that French guy that was in the last match,
True.
Stefano, bringing forth a lot of that Zerg passion in the European scene, innovating, destroying, and then of course there was that right around that time the big surgence in terms of the Broodlord Infestor playstyle that pushed a lot of Zergs forward and makes this match interesting. I mean, these are two players that you don't see on stages like this almost ever. They are not players that are picked to go very far. These tournaments are the opportunities for these guys to break out and actually show their mettle on a big stage, because the online tournaments, you usually get in best of three still like this, but you don't always get to see exactly what they're capable of when there's a little bit more pressure on, right? They're in the booths. There are people here watching them. It's probably one of the bigger matches they're going to be playing, you know, this year.
And looking at their group, Fear Dragon, how do you think these guys sit compared to the rest of their group? I think this is the last match in their group, correct?
Yeah, this is the decider match to see who's going to move on to Group Stage 3. And both of these players ended up defeating Showtime, who I think was a big tournament favorite coming into this.
Yeah.
So I gotta say, when you end up defeating Showtime, that's already just going to be a bit of a boost to your ego, especially when you were saying, and Nathaniel was talking about how you're coming in from that online tournament scene, you don't really know how you're actually going to be doing when you get to that offline setting, and suddenly it's like, oh, actually, I just beat one of the best Protoss players, if not the best Protoss player in Europe. And now I just have to play one more match and I get to move on to Group Stage 3. I'm in the money. I'm in the WCS points.
Worth touching on that note as well, seeing as the Showtime has been knocked out by these guys, is that, man, he's got a bit of a rough spot now as well, looking towards trying to get to the global playoffs later at the end of the year.
Very much so. Might have to step it up in Montreal coming up in just a month or two's time. But there has to be a bit more of a confidence boost for Denver than Strange, really.
Seeing one versus Protoss.
Precisely.
Yes. And he's also warmed up for Protoss, so he's going to already have everything ready. He doesn't have to worry about all these kind of other practice matches. Oh, queue up on the ladder. Oh, I got another Terran or something else. So he's ready.
Good stuff. So here are our maps. What do you make of what we're going to here, guys? Because my eyes are terrible, and even though we moved the screen closer, I still can't read it because I'm blind.
Well, all the Protoss players I've been talking to have been complaining a little bit less about Blood Boil. Still the second ban, which I guess because it's best of 3, maybe you still don't have as much practice on it since they removed the gold base on it. But outside of that, I think pretty par for the course. I don't know.
Yeah, you know, Proxima Station and Abyssal Reef, I generally tend to think of as maps that a lot of Pro players will feel a little bit more comfortable on.
Yeah.
Proxima Station, I think, has kind of gone through waves of up and down, how Protoss players and Zerg players are going to play on it, but Abyssal Reef, generally one of the maps that most Protoss players feel pretty good about.
Protoss like that.
If you had to peg a winner for this one, where would you be going? Fear Dragon, we'll start with you.
Well, you know, my heart is already a little bit with Strange just because I come from the online tournament scene, and of course, I have a bit of a soft spot for Strange, so I'm going to go with Strange.
If Denver won a ZVP against Showtime, I'm going to be more than happy to give him this against Strange.
Yeah, that could be a fair statement there. Don't forget that you guys can be involved in the chat as well. You can vote for who you think's going to win, as we've shown the voting system that's been going on. And also make sure to hashtag WCS and tweet at us on Twitter and get joining in the conversation. For now, we're going to head over to the commentary team to find out who is going to be advancing from this group, as Pig and Rotterdam are going to bring you all the action.
And a surprising deciding match here in this group here at WCS Valencia. Denver up against Strange. I am Pig. Joining me is Rotterdam. How are you going, Kevin?
I'm excited for this series. Definitely not the series I expected here as a decider match in this group. But I'm happy to see how the tournament is shaping up so far. I haven't really had the chance to talk about my own personal agenda yet, Pig, but I want to. I believe in my Dutch bros this tournament. I really do. And then some people always say, well, that's because you're Dutch. Obviously, part of that is true. But I actually think that both Utermo and Optimus have been looking incredibly good lately. I feel they're more confident and more comfortable, I'd almost say, than they have been in a while.
Yeah.
And people seem to be sleeping on Harstem, but Harstem is still one of the best Protoss players in Europe. So I can see the big three from the Netherlands go very far this tournament. And I'm excited to see how that continues as well. But that is, of course, something that we have to worry about later. For now, let's take a look at this awesome PvZ that we have in front of us as we are loading in to Odyssey.
And spawning up here in the top left-hand side in the blue, it is Denver.
Why do you think he picked the name Denver?
Maybe he just grew up dreaming of visiting the great land of freedom.
I think that Todd told me once it has something to do with a dinosaur. Denver the dinosaur. I think it's a song. I forgot. Anyways, over here in the right bottom side, talking about nicknames that I read as strange. Perhaps this one is not that odd. It is strange. Representing Storm Gaming.
Hoping he brings out a few oddball builds here so we can get tangled up saying strange 3 or 4 times a sentence. But we are going to have to see how this one goes. Of course, that map pool, as they were talking about on the analysis desk, it's going to be what we're starting to see as very typical maps in this season of StarCraft. Odyssey, followed up by Ascension to Aya, and the deciding match will be on Sequencer. So a very, straightforward series of maps. This one in particular, though, something a lot of Protoss players will talk about is the weak point you have right when you're trying to defend your 4th base, if the Zerg can secure their gold base, they get a very nice income boost, and there's a very strong Hydraling Baneling timing attack window. So you're gonna have to see if that comes into play. Of course, a lot of things can come in before that. We see Neeb often winning his games in Yenchiping before it even got to that stage.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of dirty roach builds on these maps as well, Pig.
Oh, some true style kind of roachling
no, Pig
maxed
style.
out.
I'm talking Pig style.
You're talking some really high level meta, right?
Yeah, exactly, that one.
Talking a bunch of roaches and
No.
zerglings in your natural.
All jokes aside, you are of course spot on. Curious to see how this one will play out. I was incredibly impressed by Strange against Cloudy in game number 1. Cloudy also a very fun player, by the way, from China. And it's about time that we have some Chinese success again in StarCraft 2. I say about time. Obviously, time is very good as well. But I feel like the days of Jim and Maxet, you know, they've kind of passed. And I feel right now it's all about Cloudy. It's about time.
Yeah.
And maybe still Iasonu as well.
And Cyan kind of disappeared, sadly.
Yeah,
Because he had
so good,
such a great appearance last year and around this same time of year. So I'd love to see him make a comeback. But of course, for now, both players are going to be going in just a relatively straightforward pattern. And the second Adept does queue up for Strange. So would not be surprised to see him going for a Glaive Adept opening. Not going for that fast robotics behind that. So might even be into double Stargate Phoenix. We've been seeing players like Neeb mixing that in lately in a lot of tournaments. So definitely something that is still in vogue.
So unfamiliar with that build pick.
Yeah, I know. I mean, it must suck to be you, Kevin, because often you just don't have any creativity and you just kind of blindly copy builds on the ladder, right?
I know, it is a shame sometimes. Let's see where Strange is going to take this. You want to be careful with these adepts. You want to know what's going on. You want to make sure you see something with them. Preferably pick off a couple of Zerglings, but don't overcommit. You don't want to lose these 2 adepts because they will secure you going up to 3 bases. He doesn't have a Mothership Core yet, does he, Strange?
No.
Oh, he's playing greedy, but I do like it.
Yeah, I mean, non-stop adept production. So this is the classic old school build we used to see all the time back in the very early map pool with maps like Frozen Temple, these maps where the adepts could get across the map very early. So it's just going to be straight into a 3rd Nexus. He'll probably start up his Mothership Core just seconds after that goes down. And he might even go into something really classic like a double robo transition off it. We're going to have to wait and see, of course.
Yeah, like old school Showtime, right? Get a cannon there and then drop 2 robos. That's absolutely possible. But I wouldn't mind to see the double Stargate. I'm personally a big fan of it. But let's see where our Russian Protoss is going to take this. He does get the Mothership Core now. I'm going to keep a close eye on these gases. You know, one thing he has to worry about, if he's going to send out the adepts, there's quite a few links out already for Denver. Denver could potentially spot. There is nothing in the wall of right now. If Denver would have a couple of Zerglings on the right side and run them into the natural, in this phase of the game, that would be very deadly for Strange. But it seems like Denver is just going to focus on defending. That Baneling nest pick is a tiny bit late.
Looks like he might have it just barely in time, of course. It makes you a little bit nervous because those are Glaive Adepts. They will shred Zerglings. But if the Banelings are going to have time to finish up, looks like Denver's timed it out okay, of course. He cannot let those shades get past him.
No, he cannot let this finish, though, because those Banelings will connect almost immediately. Now we see the Roach Warren go down as well by Denver, which I'm a tiny bit surprised by, because I feel if you want to play Roaches, I would have liked to see the Roach Warren earlier, and then maybe he could have skipped the Banelings. I feel like often it's one or the other, but going both Roaches and Banelings, this is not going to be incredibly economical.
I think that's what we call the trauma, Roddy. It's when I think there's been a few too many cheeky 12-gate adept attacks hitting him. I think it's just a safety Roach Warren, but who knows? He might be going for Ravages off the back of that.
Yeah.
I have seen players, Nurchio, Snoot, a few of these guys, even when they are going for Hydralisk styles, recently adding in this Roach Warren just in case they get surprised by one of those big adept attacks. But no, 10 Roaches on the way immediately.
Yeah, and that's 50 drones as well. So there is I can't imagine that Denver is just going to keep those 10 Roaches at home. I absolutely assume that he's going to do something with it. He's going to try to test the waters. Look at the amount of gateways. As Todd would say, l'explosion de gate. As a lot of gateways do go down in the main, and Strange is indeed going to be very aggressive with these adapts, with Resonating Glaives. There's a couple sentries as well. And I actually kind of like the Roach Warren now, but Denver has to stop building drones though. Those 9 drones, that's all you want to make, Denver. No more.
This is really, yeah, I think he's just droning up. So he's going to do a very half-hearted kind of move out into the middle of the map. Looks like these were defensive Roaches, in fact, from Denver. He may poke across.
Units.
There's no way he's going to commit with that because there's even 5 sentries on Stranger's side of the map, actually. So 6 sentries now. This is actually, oh.
Yeah, it's all in. He needs units right now. And Denver is producing Lynx, but he doesn't have Baneling speed. So the Hydra then is finished up. I don't know. I think this is going to be very, very hard. Strange is excellent when it comes to War Prisms and Sentries. He's really incredibly good with it. A couple of Ravagers. I do like that pick.
That's going to be really good for breaking those force fields, Roddy, but that's a lot of gateway units. Zerglings coming in from behind. Force fields are good on the front. A lot of those roaches trapped outside the combat area. 2 corrosive piles landing on the Adepts. And the Zerglings have been cleaned up. Denver being forced to fall back, but that's a lot of queens. A lot of roaches starting to spill out.
Couple of Adepts are going to finish up there on the left side, but miscontrolled there by Strange. He was supposed to send him into the mineral line, did not do it. I kind of like this for Denver so far, even though those force fields are really good. But these Lynx and Banelings do have +1. Good corrosive bow there on those force fields, and the Banes will get some connections. That's a lot of Protoss units being wiped in, though.
That is a lot of Glaive Adepts coming into the fight here, but most of the Stalkers and Sentries have gone down. Just a few Stalkers in the back. The War Prism is being focused. Good micro from Strange. He gets it out of there, and he is starting to shade those Adepts into those various mineral lines. The economy of Denver is exposed.
Yep, this is where a lot of drones are going to go down, but Strange needs to do more than just kill a couple of drones. He needs to kill pretty much everything, or he just needs to kill straight up Denver, as he's going to try to pick up a few roaches at a time. Are there roaches on this left bottom base? No, there are not. And this is where things get very, very painful for the French Zerg.
He was so close to holding on there was Denver, but the Adepts are just too many. Strange with a big gateway attack takes game number 1.
Well done by the Russian Protoss. Excellent execution. One moment I was starting to get a little bit worried because it really felt like the queen count was going up. We're starting to see more and more roaches. A couple of stalkers and sentries went down. I was like, I'm not sure if he's going to be able to get this done. But the moment he started splitting up the Adepts, and we can see Denver there not being incredibly pleased, perhaps with that shading ability of the Adept.
You know, I think Denver knew something about Strange's playstyle going into that. These 10 safety roaches he built, he no doubt thought, okay, I'm playing a guy who loves to do these sort of move outs. Let's get these roaches. But then he said to himself, hey, he hasn't moved out yet. He didn't spot those gateways. There was no Overlord speed or Overseer because he had a very delayed lair. And then he was just blindsided by that push. He started the extra roach and baneling production just a little bit too late, and those force fields from Strange were fantastic.
Let's say in a hypothetical world where he did have Overlord speed, he flew over all those gateways, what would you say is the correct response for Denver? I'd probably say make a few less drones and start making just more and more and more roaches as quickly as possible, right? Like Roach Ravager seems to be ideal for me.
I think even if you're down on economy against the Protoss, if you hold on, you know, once you hit a certain count of Roach Ravager, you're going to clean up that army so efficiently. So you're spot on there, Roddy. I think to be purely perfect, it's about swapping those roaches around. I think he started building them too early. He probably could have gone to the same drone count and then started massing the roaches, and he would have had just a little bit more mining. And, you know, by the time the attack actually came, it would have been more effective. So I think there, Denver maybe psyched himself out a little bit, built those roaches a little bit too early, and then went into those drones right as the attack was hitting him. So a bit unfortunate for Denver, and he does look a little shaken up after that one. But he's going to have another chance here on Ascension to Aya. He will have to win the next 2 maps in a row.
Yeah, and small things as well, like getting a Hydralist dam but never building a single Hydra. That doesn't help when you're being all in. Getting a couple of Banelings that don't get the connections that you're looking for, that also doesn't help. And he did have +1 melee, but he never really had that many units on the ground that he really got some sort of value or return of investment out of getting an upgrade that early on.
Well, he's going to have to do better this time around, and this is his shot down here in the bottom right-hand side of Ascension to Aya. It is Denver.
Losing Odyssey is never pleasant for a Zerg, but at least Ascension to Aya is quite a big map as well, so a similar build should not necessarily work for this man, but we have seen stranger things pick in the past. Over here on the left top side, looking at the main base of Psystorm Gaming's Strange. You know what I'm very happy to see? Is that Strange is starting to look more and more comfortable in these kind of events, in this kind of a setting. I saw him at Kiev earlier this year, and even though he got himself in really good positions in multiple games in a row, which was a very stacked European qualifier, basically Europe's best gathered to send 6 or 8 players, I believe it was back then, to China. And every game I saw of Strange, he was ahead. and he threw. He just kept throwing over and over and over again. You could just see he wasn't the same player as he was online, but it seems like he's a lot more comfortable these days.
He was looking quite chill there in that booth, actually. So yeah, very impressive form. And of course, remember, both of these guys did defeat Showtime before this. Strange took it 2-1 in a PvP. So he's been looking very much on point. Only one more game to go through this group in first place.
Yeah, such a big game. Not often will it happen that you defeat Showtime in the group stage, but you still don't advance to the next round. That is quite brutal, to say the least.
Oh, yeah. That would be a little bit wild. Of course, this is Ascension to Ire, and this is a map where there are going to be a bit more of an interesting layout to the bases and how the players choose to attack each other. So I'm very curious to see what ends up happening. You can see these opening build orders, very typical and standard so far. But where do the players choose to attack? And is it going to be Oracles? Is it going to be an Archon drop? What does Strange opt for? Going to be keeping my eyes on that production tab, because in just a moment he's going to have enough gas to go for that. Twilight Council.
Yeah, it could be an Archon drop. I'm kind of feeling an Archon drop here. I don't think you want to open Resonating Glaives once again. And if he does go somehow Resonating Glaives once again, but this time he's already making a Stalker, so it's so different. I'm expecting this to just be a good old Robo follow-up. Then we get some Warp Prism action, and I guess that Strange is going to take it from there. Just because we saw a timing attack in the previous game, which is just borderline all-in, right? Because he pretty much needs to kill Denver. If that's the first game you saw of Strange, you're like, great, another all-in Protoss. No, you're wrong. Strange is actually the type of Protoss that can pretty much do it all. I would say, wow, he does get Resonating Glaives once again.
There's some really interesting movement with that Stalker on the north side of the map. He was looking for the Overlord, didn't quite find it. And Denver was trying to sneak a few Zerglings around the edge of the map, but he had to pull them back. And look at that production tab. Denver back home, building a very early Baneling nest. He has cut his drones at 25 and gone into pure mass Zergling production. He is going all in with Ling Bane.
And let's not forget how late that Mothership Core was in the previous game. But look at that next pylon that goes down. I kind of have the feeling that this is some sort of a safety pylon for Strange. But there is only one pylon powering those gateways and that Cybernetics core. Strange also left his wall of open in the previous game. This is sick. I like this by Denver a lot. There is a Mothership Core right now, but this is exactly what I said in the previous game. If he would sneak a couple links by, but look at Strange. He immediately reacts. If I was Denver, I wouldn't have revealed those links before I would send my Banelings in. I mean, he gets the Adept, but he also gives a massive well, heads up basically to Strange that something ain't right.
And now Denver's just going back to droning, and he's making these Banelings so close. I feel like Strange, if he hasn't gotten vision of them yet, he definitely will now. I'm pretty sure he was morphing those earlier Banelings in range of the gateway. So very ballsy play from Denver, not really being as secretive with this as I would have liked.
No, I mean, but this is still a little bit awkward right now for Strange, because you're going to force him to kill his own pylon, and every Protoss player dies a little bit inside when you have to kill your own pylon. Often it somehow ends up with supply blocking yourself as well, and you're like, oh no, I can't believe that actually happened. And I mean, just look at the timing of this third base. It's going to be quite late. Now, obviously, the downside for Denver is that his tech is going to be incredibly late, as just now the layer has started.
Yeah, Adept Glaives is finished, but as you pointed out, Roddy, you know, breaking down the pylon. Look at this, having to make sentries as well.
Yeah.
Glaives just doesn't get used. There's no adept pressure, and pressure is always the name of the game to keeping Zerg players in control, stopping them from droning up really hard. Strange doesn't really have any pressure timing going for him, and it looks like he's got an answer. He's saying, well, I need to move out to pressure at one point. Why don't I just all in?
Yep. If you don't want me to expand, I will not expand. And what I was perhaps going to do on 3 bases once again, I'm actually going to do on 2 bases this time. Banelings coming in from the other side. Strange is going to end up losing a couple of his sentries. Actually loses 3 out of 4 and might actually losing all of them.
Every single unit goes down there.
That was awesome.
Was so important. Those sentries, they had to gather up more energy to be the core of this gateway all-in that he's going to be doing.
Denver, you're so close. You're so close to giving yourself the ultimate heads up. Even though Strange is expanding and he's going up to 3 bases, there is a good chance he's not going to build any workers for a while, as we have a Warp Prism on the way, and he's going to be able to warp in 7-8 Adepts at once. And if you think it's annoying to defend on Odyssey, well, good luck defending it on 3 bases on Ascension to Ire, where I feel there is even more distance to cover.
Good defense here from Strange. Pops a lot of force fields to catch these Zerglings. Is rallying probes out to the third, and I feel like that's a good tricky maneuver there, but no, Strange actually is starting up probe production. Looks like Strange wants to take this one later, and hey, check out that worker count. He's actually up in the workers right now. Denver has been playing so low economy and so aggressive. And Denver looks like he wants to keep it up. He's got Roach speed on the way. Roaches, Ravagers, and Zerglings coming across the map right now.
Now I really wonder what Strange is going to do with that army that he just sent out. I think he's just going to cancel this Nexus, try to defend on 2 bases. He's going to lose a couple of these pylons. He will drop a single overcharge. But now this army on the top side of the map has been spotted as well. This game is just getting wild. Denver has absolutely zero creep threat in this game. The moment I say it, we see the first creep tumor actually go down. I don't understand why Strange didn't cancel this Nexus. That makes no sense to me. But he should be able to pick up the hatchery on the other side of the map.
This is going to be going down to 2 bases for both players. It looks like Denver's going to try and break the natural wall in. Oh, both players looking for more damage here. These Adepts shading in. They want to massacre those worker line, and they're starting to do it. Oh, here we go. The Immortal pops out, and with the overcharge, it pushes Denver back. Strange finding the damage here. He still hasn't taken out the third hatchery, but he almost doesn't have to with the worker lead that he's getting for himself.
Yeah, he's massacring a lot of drones over here. A couple of Zealots being wiped in as well to pick up that hatchery.
Wow.
But, I mean, if he doesn't kill the hatch, then it wouldn't be enough. Killing drones is awesome, but if you can't finish it up, then it's still going to be rough. But he does get the hatchery with the Zealots. And now, obviously, Strange is feeling like, all right, this must be pretty damn good for me. My opponent has no tech, doesn't really have any impressive upgrades whatsoever, and a Zerg only on 2 hatcheries. Oh, if he can land some corrosive balls, that would be massive. But he doesn't get it.
Good reaction there from Strange. Strange does have a second Immortal about to pop. He's got to be very careful with these units as they grow in. Oh, okay. Very ballsy force fields there. Wants to trap these Ravagers. Is going to get a few of them, but a lot of Ravagers actually being, sentries, sorry, being sniped in return for that. A little bit of a ballsy move.
Those are slow warp ins, and that is actually not that many Immortals. Well, the second Immortal does show up. I love powering that Warp Prism there to speed up the Warp Prism or the Warp in process. Good pickups as well on those sentries. Well done there by Strange. That looked a little bit rough for a split second, but he really handled that very well.
Strange really needs to go and do damage to Denver, or get his third up at some point. But because he did snipe down the third of Denver, he's actually in an okay position. And Denver just looks like he's basically got 1 speed, and that is all in. Keep building units, try to break him. But when you've got less Roaches and then you actually have Protoss units on the map, it's never a good story.
Those are good, though. Those corrosive balls are excellent. They do connect with the majority of the sentries and the Adepts. But the 2 Immortals are the big problem here. If Denver can somehow pick up the Immortal, the Warp Prism is going to show up, picks up both Immortals. It seems like Strange overcommits a little bit here, though, Pick. He doesn't have to be here.
He keeps losing sentries. What? I don't know why he's on the map right now.
Oh my God, the Immortals! Are you kidding me?
Oh man, that is huge. I am actually stunned. He lost that Warp Prism. Strange getting ahead of himself, trying to push out there. Maybe thought Denver had another base. Felt more pressure to push right there. And now Denver is actually finding a little bit of purchase here. Getting a position on this third base. He's going to be able to deny this. He might even be going in deeper. What have we got here? There's just so few units left for Strange. Those Immortals, they were the core of everything. He needed those units alive.
Wow, Denver was as good as that, but somehow he's clawing his way back into this game. He's still down 10 workers, but he's going to get a cancel on this base. We've got Aspire, which is obviously quite awesome, but look at Denver's economy. What is he going to do? Like build 2 mutas at a time? That is kind of good, don't get me wrong, because there is no Blink, there is no Stargate, so I'm not hating it. And he's obviously going to be able to keep the pressure up. But I would like to see maybe a few more drones if you actually want to get some real usage out of that Spire. But getting the Cybercore pickoff here is massive. But Strange is going to hit himself in the head multiple times, knowing what kind of a lead he just threw away by overcommitting in the middle of the map.
You know, those Immortals, the way their barriers cool down and reset, the way their shields regenerate, if you don't lose those as they build up in number, Roach Ravager Zergling is one of the least efficient army compositions to deal with that, but Strange did lose the core of that. He lost the third base, and now 3 Mutalisks on that production tab, Roddy.
But it is actually excellent in just right-clicking on the Prism, right? That's at least one thing it's going to be very useful for. This is still kind of a scary army by Strange. It comes down to force fields. Maybe Denver can collapse on this army before the extra reinforcements are here. Getting an Immortal would be fantastic. This is still close. despite the fact that Strange threw away all his units in the middle of the map. Where's that Warp Prism?
There's nothing that shoots up, Roddy.
There are
3
sentries.
Mutalisks coming in. One of them is almost dead, but the sentries have mostly gone down. Both armies just crashing into each other. Most of the units have gone down. The Mutalisks being microed backwards. One Muta there going to take down the last sentry. The last Protoss units of Strange falling away. He's desperately trying to shade in there. And these 3 Mutalisks reign supreme. The 3 Mutalisk tech switch Rotterdam. It has actually turned out to be the perfect decision.
But why didn't Strange have a Warp Prism there? I thought the Warp Prism was out already. I feel like he just left it at home. In the end, he did warp in a bunch of Stalkers. But if the Prism is there immediately and he warps in 4 or 5 Stalkers, which he had money for, because he actually did, but he warped it all the way in at home, that could have been a lot closer. We've got 3 Mutas flying into the main base of Strange now, but I mean, one overcharge should be able to take care of it. There's actually no pylon protecting that mineral line. The armies are engaging in the middle of the map. Let's take a look at the armies real quick, as a few more adepts have been picked off. And I just feel that right now, Denver has finally reached that critical mass of Zerg that is just a little too scary for the Protoss.
GG. Denver claws his way back into that game. We thought he was down and out. You can see it on his face. He looks exhausted. He can't believe that he actually brought that game back, but he did, and he is still in it with a chance. Both players tied up 1-1.
Strange had a more powerful army, he had more workers, and he had a third base on the way. Normally, you're not supposed to lose that. In no scenario, Strange knows it as well. You can see a little bit of frustration there. Just got over-eager in the middle of the map. You kind of made a funny face when he was eating all those corrosive balls.
Yeah.
So did I, but I was like, I shouldn't make the difference. And then suddenly he picked up both Immortals, and I'm like, oh God, I've seen this in my own ladder games. Don't do it. And then the Prism goes down with the 2 Immortals in it as well. And that was just the beginning of the end. That's where the tide truly turned. And somehow Denver is still alive, and we're going to game 3.
Definitely one of those messy games there. I think it comes back to, of course, Strange being a little bit over-eager to push out. I mean,
he didn't have to.
After the previous damage that had happened, he had, remember, on that ramp, he had the sentries, the Immortal, he had that great little force, and I was saying, oh, cool, he's just got to be careful with this. Yeah. He's going to build up more force fields, more energy, get out more Immortals. And I think you could see things start to go awry the moment he did the sentry drop on top of the Ravagers to try and force field them. Lost 3 sentries, then he lost another 2 sentries with his main army to the Bile. 30 seconds later, lost another 4 or 5 sentries, then lost the 2 Immortals in the Warp Prism. A real series of just absolute disasters for the Protoss player there from Russia.
Yep.
And the French Zerg player, I mean, he's had a Hail Mary there. He's kind of had a little bit of a miracle happen. He's going to need to just bring it together, tighten up his plan in this next one.
Yep, this is one of those scenarios as well, though, where we have obviously access to all the numbers. So we see, and we're sitting here and we're like, oh my God, Denver is making units of 36 drones. He is refusing to tack up. He's just making more links, more drones, more Ravagers. He pretty much wants to fight right now. And this is something that Strange doesn't know. Strange might be playing this game, and from his point of view, he's like, I'm in a really good position. Now, the last thing I want to do is let this Zerg somehow macro up and get back into this game. So I'm just going to keep the pressure on. And before you know it, suddenly in the middle of the map, you're like, oh my God, that's a lot of Zerg. Did this like crazy Zerg not drawn up at all? Well, that's obviously the case. And then, you know, you kind of try to salvage the situation by, you know, trying to rescue your Immortals, and that was the beginning of the end. Just a rough spot for Strange, where if he would have had the access to the information that we had, he would have never moved out. He would have chilled at home, and he would have just cruised to a victory there, because he's up in economy, and he had stronger units.
You know, this is a big match for both of these guys, Rotterdam. Probably for both of them, one of their first times on a big stage like this. And I mean, the Eminem song comes to mind, right? Your palms are sweaty. Hey, you ever try to dodge corrosive bile when your palms are sweaty? It's kind of tough. And I think we saw that multiple times.
Ever tried to dodge mom's spaghetti? Have you ever tried to dodge that pig?
Well, it's usually not thrown at my sentry's face, but if it was, I think I'd struggle pretty hard to dodge a pile of mum spaghetti flying all over the place.
I think spaghetti would be very effective against sentries. The sentries kind of hover, you know, and they have like these little eyeballs, and if you just throw spaghetti on them, they can't see anything.
And it kind of gets tangled up in that little energy ball on their back.
It's like Guardian Shield pods, but it doesn't really work, so there's like holes in your Guardian Shield and stuff. I think Mom Spaghetti should be the new ability of the Roach.
You heard it here first, guys. The Sentry's Guardian Shield works like a projector screen. And of course, we are going to be going into map number 3 here. It is going to be on Sequencer. Down here in the bottom left-hand side from France, it is Denver.
Playing a pretty good series so far, and obviously an excellent tournament. Sometimes it's that we can showcase these guys more because they are good, and we'd like to see more of them, but we have so many top players coming into the round of 32 as well. But one of them at least is going to make it, and it could also be this young man. Representing Storm Gaming, it is Strange.
He's got to focus after letting that last one slip away from him. And he's looking in control there in the booth. Of course, we've gone from 2 relatively straightforward maps and how they play out through to Sequencer, a long, kind of narrow map, but a map filled with choke points, filled with ledges, destructible debris all over the place, which you can break down to open up wider paths or open up brand new paths. It's a very interesting map, especially in this matchup. You know, a lot of cheeky options available, but also just in macro games, the army movements are so important.
And if there's one thing I can say about Strange so far, watching his games today, is that he loves his sentries. And if you love sentries on Ascension to Ire, well, you're gonna marry the heck out of them on Sequencer, that's for sure. Because, like you said, so many narrow choke points.
Yeah.
Good chance that we're gonna see something similar to that. Maybe this time with Immortals, and Immortals maybe Zealots and then sentries. Or maybe just does the same thing again. Often players prepare one build specifically. First game, it worked great. This is a better map for that build. Second game, you could say it should have worked, and it maybe could have worked if he didn't overcommit in the middle of the map. Obviously, the game was weird with Denver making a lot of units early on.
Yeah.
Kind of, sort of bailing busting, but then not really because Strange reacted to it and actually picked up on it in time. But I did like that. What I liked from Denver in the last game is that he wanted to go for a bailing bust. The moment he realized Strange picked up on it, he transitioned immediately.
Yeah.
But you still force a weird game out of the Protoss. All the regular timings, they don't exist anymore because you just wiped in 3 extra pylons. You somehow walled yourself into your own main. So it just creates a different game. And we know there are Zergs out there. You know, think of Cats, think of Bly. They thrive in those weird situations because they have way more experience in that than you have as a Protoss.
And that's the aim of the game for a lot of Zergs out there in this matchup. Zerg, a very dangerous race. They've got a lot of fancy, sneaky attacks. Protoss, the race which traditionally builds up the longer the game goes into a stronger, more powerful army. So a lot of Zerg players trying to throw curveballs at their opponents, trying to surprise them and catch them off guard. And definitely something which Denver did quite well with last game.
I can't remember the last time I casted a PvZ best of 3 where I saw Resonating Glaives 3 games in a row. This used to be very standard. These days, not that much anymore at all. I'm still a fan of it myself as a Protoss player. I think it is a useful opening because it's very safe against pretty much every all-in on these large maps. And obviously, you can always force out some units. Like worst case scenario, you shade a bunch of Adepts into a bunch of Zerglings and Banelings. Well, at least you forced out those units, right? Like if you open up with something else, it's not necessarily a given that you can do that. So, and it's, you know, excellent in defending any sort of linked swarm early on as well, because the last thing you want to do as a Zerg is fight Adepts with Resonating Glaives on the other side of the map.
And you know, Denver put Strange on edge with that opening last game. Denying the third, coming in with a surprise Link Bane attack. We see Strange being a lot less greedy. This time he's got that Mothership Core out before the third base goes down. He's non-stop been producing Adepts. He's making his warp gates as quickly as possible. Strange really respecting that aggression that Denver can throw at him.
That is such a risky pylon there. Just one pylon powering those 3 gates.
Yeah.
You lose somehow, if you somehow lose power to it. That is an overcharge for a single link. You can really see that Strange is a tiny bit nervous, because normally you don't do that. But that is 7 Adepts shading to the other side of the map. I do like that number. That's an excellent number. The Baneling Nest is late pick. This time, if Strange goes all the way in, this could get very dicey for Denver immediately.
Those drones on that third base looking mighty exposed right now. Strange going to threaten the shade in. Ooh, doesn't commit to it, does just cancel. Of course, he's not sure if this Baneling's hiding just outside of vision. Doesn't want to play too riskily here, but Strange already denying mining time. forcing a lot of units out of Denver, and Denver knows he's not properly ready for this, so he has to respect it so much, even dropping a spine crawler in that natural.
Yep, not only is Strange forcing out a ridiculous amount of Zerglings, he's going to spot those Banelings now, and he's probably going to think like, if these are your first Banelings, you got really lucky, son. But, you know, in the end, this was still good for Strange because Denver doesn't have a fourth hatchery yet. He's quite low in the drone department, and he was forced to produce a silly amount of Zerglings. And he didn't even kill the Adepts.
Interestingly, we are seeing 3 sentries warping in and an observer. No sign necessarily of the same big sort of gateway all in attack, as he could just go into Immortals after this warp prism, could warp in other units, but more gateways going down before Forges or Templar Archives. Okay, I think we're seeing a pattern here, Rotterdam.
Yep, he just loves it. He loves the 3-gate resonating glaives opening, couple sentries, and then 7 more gateways. It's important that the Overlords spot this. Denver, you know what I'd love to see? He has Overlord speed. Morph a couple of Overlords at home and drop Banelings on top of this army, because there are no Stalkers in his army. Wouldn't you think that's great?
Oh, Denver's actually moving out with a big push, but his Overlords haven't spotted those extra gateways. He doesn't know just yet how many units Strange is committing to.
I don't get it. You have Overlord speed, Denver. Use it. This is what you get Overlord speed for.
He's building a lot of units, though. I think Denver here is just saying, I know how you play. I am just going to play safe against it. Roach speed on the way, Baneling speed, skipping out on those Evolution Chamber upgrades and just massing units of 53 drones. I think Denver is so well prepared for this.
Yeah, he's making a lot of units, and he definitely has the right amount of units. But I think with 2 Drop Lords, I think you're incredibly safe. I'd love to see him just drop 2 Banelings on top of this army, because trying to run them in without Baneling speed is going to be very hard. Force fields will go down. Warp Prism is in a safe spot. Couple of Banelings do connect, though.
Some very nice Baneling connections on that right-hand side. The Adept Shade in. The Spine Crawler's dealing with it really well. These units getting force fielded in, actually. There's just too many Zerglings, and I think Denver here, overwhelming numbers. Fantastic preparation. Looks like he's going to be able to hold on. Strange immediately starts building probes behind that, and he's just going to have to fall back. Denver defending this very well.
Yep, he also had the link flank coming all the way from the other side, which really helped a lot. Strange sending in a lot of adepts forward, but this time Denver was prepared. He left a couple of units in this natural, not too many, but not too few either. Just the right amount, and then on the right side we saw a couple of Banelings connect with the sentries, and that makes your life so much easier as a Zerg. Now Denver is gonna do some counterattack. Once again, Pick, you have Overlord speed. I'd love to see him more per Dropper-Lord. There we have it finally. Send a couple of Lings into the main. Send 4 Banelings into the main of the natural. I don't care what you do, but make it harder for the Protoss to defend. And there we have it, a couple of Banelings. Right moves here by Denver, I love it.
And Strange, he's getting down in that army supply. He's going for Forges, Immortals, more Sentries. But right now he is so weak against Ravagers, Baneling speed, and that is exactly what Denver has. Banelings, Roaches, and Ravagers coming forward. Great force fields to slow this down just a little bit, but 2 Banelings are gonna hit that natural. Massive hit, 10 probes go down. Denver equalizes that work account, but he needs to get a little bit more done than that.
But he's also has an upgrade advantage, and that is incredibly important. Strange is going to shade forward. Obviously, Denver did this once now, but he can keep on doing this. If you don't have a Stargate and there aren't really any observers out on the map, I really think that Denver can do critical amounts of damage to the economy of Strange.
I agree, Roddy, but I think he's really got to be a bit more urgent with how he does this. He's sitting on 57 workers. It's not a high work account.
Nope.
Strange is going to be building higher value units. Sure, Denver's still going to have opportunities in this game, but he really needs to have a sense of urgency about getting some damage done right now while he has that army and mobility advantage.
I think the observer just spotted this. I love how the other 2 Lings just went through the wall, by the way. They just teamed up there with the rest. Not a heads up at all. 2 more Banelings into the natural. Once again, gonna get... Well, oh my God, the double pronged attack. We sort of missed it, but this is what we want to see out of Denver. We know he's good enough for it, and if you have the upgrade, you want to use it non-stop, and Strange is like, all right, this is going to keep on happening. I cannot afford to compete with this. More Banelings in the natural. We'll still get a couple of additional... No, actually not a single one. This is the army right now that has to do it for Strange, but Denver can use it defensively as well. There really isn't that much anti-air in the army of Strange, and if you can drop Banelings on top of the sentries, I think that is the end. I mean, there are Stalkers in the mix now, more Stalkers being wiped in. So even though Denver has pretty much killed the economy of Strange, that is still a scary Protoss army, Pick.
Absolutely, and some of these Hydras, they were on a move. Denver losing
Some scrappy series, some messy sin to go. Everybody is back into it. 10 minutes and 10 seconds. It felt like this game lasted a lot longer. Look at +2, by the way, just finishing up.
Ooh, and +1 about to finish here for Strange as well. And you can see those armies in the south side of the map about to clash. Strange needs to do damage with this push. But there's a lot of Ravagers on top of that ramp.
That's a lot of
Banelings. They've got Baneling speed morphing. He's just got to buy time. Denver has a much bigger economy, forcing those force fields out back there without losing any units. This is great micro from Denver.
Yeah, Denver actually doing a lot of damage there as well with corrosive balls. I have no idea what that Baneling just split up with. Nidus Worm going down. I wouldn't really worry about doing damage on the other side of the map right now, Denver. What you have to worry about is defending this army. Sure, you may be able to do more economic damage, but you need to stop this army. So I really wouldn't unload too much here. It's gonna be Banelings and they're stuck. What? Okay.
Couple of Banelings there are gonna get a whole bunch of kills. Strange knows his time is running out of the hourglass. He needs to do something and he needs to do it now. He manages to isolate that 4th base, but he wants to find more damage. He's gonna regroup those units and try to push through, but there's just so many Banelings, Rotterdam.
Yeah, Banelings coming in from every angle as well. Denver sending units to the north side. He's a little bit hesitant there. I like that idea. There you go, Denver, coming in from all angles and perhaps at once. But there are still a lot of sentries in the mix.
Not much energy, though. They're running very
much
low.
Protoss.
Oh, the sandwich! So many Lings and Banelings coming in. Corrosive bile rains down from above. Denver massacres the army. And he takes the game 2-1.
No better way to finish the best of 3 if you play Zerg than what Denver just showed us there. Coming in from pretty much every angle you can imagine. Corrosive Balls, Baneling, Roaches, Ravagers moving forward. And he advances to the round of 32 while almost being down and out in game number 2. What a series by the French Zerg.
Just not enough force fields at the end there. Of course, a closely fought match for both players. Strange showing he has some real power in that matchup. Both of these players, of course, taking out the monster Showtime before this. It was just an incredible series and great to see some fresh faces out there. Let's hear from the man himself down on the stage with Sue.
Thank you very much, Pig. Denver, congratulations. First of all, this group started out with you 2-0ing Showtime, who everyone knows is one of the best European players out there. And then you 2-1'd Strange, and now you're moving on to the top 32. You're having a great start to this event so far.
Yeah, actually, I'm very surprised with my performance. Like, winning Showtime 2-0 was, like, just impossible. At the start of the best-of, I was like, I'm gonna play my best, but not even sure to take one game against Showtime, so yeah, I'm very surprised.
So let's talk a little bit about that series against Showtime then. What do you think went well there? Was everything just playing out, as planned?
I think he made a lot of mistakes, and I tried to abuse that. Like, was not very good when we had to multitask, and I tried to abuse that, and I won the game.
Now, when it comes to this series, I want to talk about Ascension to Ire because it was such a scrappy game, a lot of action going on back and forth. So in the end there, what decisions do you think you made that made you win the game in the end?
Actually, I knew what was coming, but I'm very bad at playing against all-in. So yeah, just making units, not making too much drones, but that's actually the most hard sport, I think. Yeah.
Well, with this win here, as I mentioned, you are now in the top 32 here at this event. And I was looking at your results, and actually, this is your highest placing at a premier event so far. So what does that mean to you?
That's amazing, playing on the scene and winning as well, beating Showtime as well. That was my main goal to reach the group stage 3. And so now I can lose 0-4, I don't care, so yeah.
Well, congratulations, Denver. Really great to see a new face making it out to the top 32 here. And let's head back to Caleres.
That's right, Denver with the 2-1 victory here as the Zerg paints the room green and a death match ensues here between Strange and Denver, with Denver being victorious. I'm joined by Nathanius and Fear Dragon once again here. Nathanius, that was a battle to the death.
Quite the struggle throughout that series. You saw a lot of probes get blasted. Of course, this big fight. I think the only thing you're thinking there if you're Strange is, oh no, you are getting swallowed alive by that Ravager army.
Yeah, very difficult there for Strange to deal with towards the end of that. Very Impressive victory, though, overall from Denver, coming out of this group for Dragon.
Absolutely. I mean, I really think that the corrosive bios from Denver were super on point, constantly being able to nail those on top of all the sentries, really shutting down Strange's capabilities, because Strange kept getting into good positions. He kept getting into places where I would think, oh, well, he's got this, surely he's got this now. This is finally that point where he can take this game. And then the engagement would happen, and the Ravager corrosive bios would come down, and suddenly his army would just disappear into nothing.
So he goes into now the round of 32, going into group stage number 3. Of course, there's a lot of big names in there coming in from Challenger. A lot of Zergs there, obviously, because of how Challenger actually played on out. What are we thinking about his prospects going into the round of 32? He's going to have to be a dark horse.
He's the wild card now.
Yeah.
You know, this was not supposed to happen. If you were tuning in, you're like, oh, wow, it's a great victory. It's like Showtime was supposed to, be the guy that was going out of the series. Both these guys were supposed to get kicked out by him. And now it's kind of like anything goes, because what is he capable of? What actually happened in that Showtime series? I didn't see it. I don't know. Was it some crazy cheese that he did?
Right.
Is he actually just playing the tournament of his life? Is he just extremely well rested, extremely well practiced for this event? And it gives us another exciting story where we have these players that are making their way through, and then they get into a bracket where they can get those dangerous builds out. Maybe we see more upsets.
I mean, a lot of people watch from home, and even some players who are of extremely good caliber watch from home, and they see the round of 32 and stuff like that. Fear Dragon, what does it mean now for Denver to breach into what is considered to be the top tier of this event?
I mean, it's a huge deal. Not only are you finally entering into some of the money, you're getting some of the WCS points, but on top of that, it's just gonna feel really good about yourself. And here's one of the big dangers, and I actually really like to think about Kelazur, who talked about this when he actually got a really, really good finish on one of the premier events earlier this year. I think he got round of 4, and he said, well, I got round of 4, and then I was just happy with how I did, and I just didn't care anymore. I was okay. But after the event, that is when you start caring. You think, man, what if I had actually just given a little bit more effort? What if I didn't just feel quite so content and I had gotten a little bit further? What if I had made it to the grand finals? And it's always after the event that you start thinking those things.
I mean, I don't completely agree, because I think based on the results Kelazur had last year, this was a huge improvement for him, like the way that he's performed. So to a certain extent, I can see that. And I think that Denver should be happy that he made it this far.
Absolutely.
Because nobody would have, and to my knowledge, I would not have picked him to go over Showtime if he was in form. Because as Roddy said at the very beginning of this broadcast, we expect Showtime to be one of the top-tier Protoss players in Europe. We don't expect him to lose, especially not to a guy that isn't, an Laser or a Serral. So I think he should be happy to get to round 32, but it is still this phase where it's like, it is early enough that's like, you definitely aren't content with round 32, no matter how unpredicted you were to get here.
Good showing nonetheless so far here from Denver. All right, our next matchup is going to be Scarlet going up against Petite Drogo, as we're going to go to a short break now. And when we return, more from WCS Valencia as we breach into the very, very good games.